A deal just closed on HubSpot, and the moment it does, a whole chain of things are supposed to happen automatically. The customer gets welcomed, someone gets assigned to them, tasks are created, and the team gets notified. But here's the question I ask every single time I walk into a brand new portal. Can you actually see that whole chain, or are you just guessing that it all works? Today I want to find out, and I'll show you exactly what's supposed to happen when a deal closes and why it's hard to see all of this within HubSpot, and exactly how Howley fits in to show you this entire chain automatically. So within my HubSpot portal, I have several workflows that are deal workflows. I have contact workflows that all support in this customer onboarding process as soon as that deal has closed won. So for example, I have a workflow here that is deal closed won that kicks off onboarding. So when deal stage is closed won, we set the onboarding status to not started yet with a internal email notification to send the account management follow-up directly to the deal owner. And then lastly, we're adding them to a new segment called new customers onboarding. Within this set of workflows, I also have things like onboarding kickoff booked. So what this does, right, is it looks at when the onboarding status is kickoff is booked, we set the onboarding status to in progress. Then we create a task to create this onboarding checklist and assign it to the deal owner. I have several other workflows in here too, like the internal handoff here. What this one does is it assigns an onboarding owner to as the contact owner, and then it sends a customer ready for onboarding internal email notification to the contact owner as well. So there's a lot of moving pieces within this onboarding flow. As soon as the deal reaches closed won, we assign them to an owner, we set different properties, and then we're adding them to different lists as well. The last one I want to show here is onboarding complete. What this one does is as soon as the onboarding status is complete, we remove them from the segment called new customers onboarding, and then we set their lifecycle stage to customer, and then we add them to an active list called active customers to keep track of all of our active customers as they have completed onboarding, and we are ready to engage them with further educational content. And while HubSpot is amazing for creating workflows across deals and contacts to make sure that this entire onboarding process is successful for the team, one thing HubSpot is not that good at is showing you the entire chain of how everything is connected. So for example, how do you make sure that when a new lead enters the onboarding flow and you want to make any changes to this flow, that you're not accidentally breaking anything, or if you want to rename a property that is not triggering another workflow, that's what we're going to be taking a look at today. So as I'm flipping to Howley here, we get all of our workflows on one canvas map, so we can see all of our contact workflows, our deal workflows, company workflows, and so on. Specifically, what we want to look at today are the properties, and we want to look at how this onboarding flow is connected. And so the first thing that I might want to do is look at the impact analyzer and search for the property that we looked at called onboarding status. Once I have searched for this, I can see that there are 5 workflows affected by this one property. So there are 3 workflows that trigger enrollment, meaning these start a brand new workflow, right? So we have 2 workflows here that are active, and they enroll when onboarding status is complete or it's kickoff booked. And then we have 2 workflows that set the onboarding status to in progress or to not started. And one thing I can do is I can click into this workflow here and I can see the enrollment chain immediately. So what this workflow does, the added to list, is that we can see that it is started by this workflow that we looked at called onboarding complete, handoff to success, and it started via the active customers list. And so that's one thing that we didn't see in HubSpot because as we were going through it, the workflow one by one, if we hadn't mapped this out and knew exactly how the workflow was set up and how the chains were set up, we would be left in the dark. But with something like Howley, you can see the immediate connections directly in the sidebar and on the canvas map. And one thing I'm interested in, right, is looking at the full onboarding flow. And so what I can do is I can toggle all connections on, and immediately we can see that there are connections across multiple workflows here. But specifically, the workflows that we are interested in are the ones here in HubSpot called new customer internal handoff, welcome sequence, etc. And so if I go back to Howley, what I can do is I can see the connections from deals to contacts if I zoom in, and then I can actually separate these and create my own workflow map. So I'm going to start with taking the closed one, kickoff handoff, because I can see that it connects to several other workflows here. And so I'm going to toggle the direct connections on just to make it a little bit easier to create my flow map at the moment. And we have the customer welcome sequence. The other workflows we looked at were the added to list active customers. We can move that up here and we can see that this is connected to the handoff to success. And see if there are anything else. We have onboarding booked. That was another one here called onboarding kickoff booked. And we can actually search for this one. That is right there. Let's move that up there and then go here so we can see that there are additional connections here. But the red line here actually says that it starts another workflow that we hadn't even considered before, because this workflow, the stalled onboarding nudge, let's take a look at what that is in HubSpot. So this one is off. And if I come on as a consultant and I am in charge of auditing this portal, one thing that I may want to look at is how everything is connected, whether it's inactive or active. And in this case, we have a workflow called stalled onboarding nudge, which looks at onboarding status is in progress. And this is, if it's been in progress more than 14 days, we create a follow-up task. And so this might be very good to turn on, as it could certainly help with this flow. I'm going to take that up there. And one thing that I've done now is I've mapped out the entire workflow onboarding process. And this one right here, because we can toggle on, we can also see the inactive connections. We have now separated our entire onboarding flow so we can see exactly where it starts and where it ends. And so in this case, right, we start with the what happens as soon as a deal closes. We can see that when deal stage is any of closed one, we set the onboarding status to not started. We send an internal notification, and then we add them to the list called new customers onboarding. And this workflow right here, one thing you can't see in HubSpot, what you can see in Howley, is exactly what it starts. As soon as these leads are added to this list called new customers onboarding, it actually starts these two contact workflows. And we can see this directly with the connections tab, because under the new customer internal handoff and the customer welcome series, we can see that they're started via the new customers onboarding list. So that's visible in the sidebar or directly on the canvas along the arrows here. We can look at what happens after this. So if we click on the onboarding complete, this enrollment starts when onboarding status is complete. So we remove them from this list called new customers onboarding. So here they're added to the list, then we remove them from this list. Then we set their lifecycle stage to customer, and then we add them to this list called active customers. The onboarding kickoff booked as well, right? Here's an error that I might see. So when onboarding is kickoff booked, we set their onboarding status to in progress, and then we create a task to create that onboarding checklist. And it starts this stalled onboarding nudge, but we can see that the connection is paused, because when we looked at the stalled onboarding nudge, we can see that it is off. And if we open it in HubSpot as well, we can also see that, yeah, this needs to be reviewed and turned on. But if I'm coming in, I can see that somebody has created this. So there's probably a reason or a purpose for creating this. So what I can do is I can add a note here to my documentation. I can say, let's review this and find out whether we should turn it on. This is a medium risk for me as I'm working with my client, as I'm auditing. I want to save that note so I have it. And then when I show this audit map to my client, I can really quickly hover over the actual workflow node itself, and I can see this note has been added to the node. Lastly, right, we have the active customers list here. What this does is, okay, add it to the list called active customers. I want to open this in review. So as soon as they are a member of active customers, right, we send them some educational content. This is perhaps a onboarding or a customer nurture, which is fine, right? Some helpful tips, things like that. And so this is fine. But one thing we could do is also look at what happens after this nurture program is complete and create additional connections to these workflows. So by using something like Howley, you can separate your onboarding flows, you can separate your nurture programs, you can really separate everything as you're creating this audit, which makes it really easy as a consultant, as an agency, to look at all of these workflows at the same time and figure out how it all works together. Howley is free to try for 7 days, where you get full access to the canvas map, to the impact analyzer, and everything we discussed today. So definitely worth checking out if you're going through your onboarding checklist. You want to see how all of your workflows are connected, either in-house, as a consultant, or as an agency.